So today's scripture, this evening's scripture, is why we light candles at Christmas. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God. He was in the beginning with God. All things came into being through him, and without him, not one thing came into being. What has come into being in him was life, and the life was the light of all people. The light shines in the darkness, and the darkness has not overcome it. There was a man sent from God whose name was John. He came as a witness to testify to the light so that all might believe through him. He himself was not the light, but he came to testify to the light. The true light, which enlightens everyone, was coming into the world. He was in the world, and the world came into being through him, and yet the world did not know him. He came to what was his own, and his own people didn't accept him. But to all who received him, who believed in his name, he gave power to become children of God, who were born not of blood, nor of the will of the flesh, or of the will of man, but of God. And the Word became flesh and lived among us, and we've seen his glory, the glory as of a Father's only Son, full of grace and truth. From his fullness we have all received grace upon grace. The law indeed was given through Moses. Grace and truth come through Jesus Christ. No one has ever seen God. It's God, the only Son, who is close to the Father's heart, who has made him known. Tawfiq Salsa is a woodcarver in the city of Bethlehem. He sells those olive wood nativities to tourists, but there's one really noticeable, glaring difference in Tawfiq's work that you'll notice right away if you ever see it. Although Joseph and Mary have loving faces and they're turned toward the beautiful baby Jesus, in Tawfiq's nativity, there's a wall between Jesus and the wise men. There's a wall between Jesus and the wise men. You've probably never seen a nativity that looked like that. And Tawfiq says, I wanted to give the world an idea of how we live here in the Holy Land. He's referring, of course, to the 25-foot concrete barrier that now rings the city of Jesus' birth. And I'm not here to talk about politics, but I am here to talk about walls. The Bethlehem Wall is a place of deep sadness and fear and frustration. Doesn't matter which side of the wall you live on. And it is a wall that shows up the contrast between what could be, what should be, and what actually is. Because people on both sides would really rather live in peace. It's a reminder that any wall erected anywhere in any time is not God's will. Suffering ensues. Hope begins to dim. The Berlin Wall, Hadrian's Wall, the Great Wall of China. A wall is the sign that something's wrong. There was no concrete wall around Bethlehem in the first century. There was, however, a different kind of wall. It was the stark contrast between the poor of this little village and the powerful and wealthy in Jerusalem and Rome. Under Augustus, there was a wall of separation between those who were citizens of very powerful, very few, and those who were not, the many who labored to sustain the empire for the wealthy and powerful. In Jerusalem, there was a wall of separation between those who had power in religion because they had collaborated with the Romans, those were the temple authorities, and those who were powerless, all the other Jews who were taxed and oppressed to starvation and death. What we miss when we boil this Christmas story down to a once-a-year celebration of malls and mangers is the stark truth that Jesus was born on the wrong side of the wall. The Word became flesh and dwelt among us. We've heard that phrase from John's Gospel so many times. Here's something you may not know. The word dwelt among us, is more accurately translated as pitched tent. God pitched tent with us. And that's such a great way of talking about it because, of course, for all their history and throughout most of the Bible, in the beginning, the Jews are a nomadic people. And their claim to fame was that their God went where they are. That they didn't have to be someplace at a hill or a building for God to be connected to them. They could go anywhere, and God went where they were. God pitched tent among them. The word pitched tent and dwelt among us. God was with them, traveled with them, struggled with them, ate that awful manna with them, danced by the firelight each night. The Word made flesh and dwelt among us. On that Bethlehem night so long ago, God pitched tent with the nomads and the wanderers of the world. God came to be among those of us who are just on the journey of the Spirit, the journey of life. When the angels came, they came to Bethlehem on that other side of the wall. It was to the lowest of the low that they came, the insignificant and the forgotten people, not at the heart of the empire. God chose to reveal his grand plan for the world to those people. God's plan of peace on earth was not going to come through power. It wasn't going to come through a strong stock portfolio. Conquering armies and vanquished enemies weren't where the grace and love were going to take root and spread. It would not be peace that meant prosperity for some and poverty for the rest. It is God among us, pitching tent with us. Even us wanderers and nomads who don't feel like we have a home, this is what peace with God's justice looks like. It's what shalom, the Hebrew word that we often translate peace, means, but it also means wholeness, health, abundance. Everybody is okay. Shalom. Everybody is okay. Jesus lived his life, every day of it, on the wrong side of the wall. The baby born in the cave healed the sick, the poor people, touched the untouchables, the cast aside, called the wealthy to share their wealth, and fed the hungry. He spent his time with people on the edge, loved the unlovable, washed the feet of his disciples as if he were nothing but a slave. This is how we experience God when we are laid low, when we are outside the circle of love. Acts of kindness and justice that draw us in when we are out in the dark, that heal us when we think we are so damaged we'll never heal again, that embrace us when we can't bear the loneliness, that speak to us when we are discouraged and hopeless. This is what it means to live on the outside of the wall where God is. To hear the distant music of Christmas, you'll have to face your other side of the wallness. You'll have to remember the things you don't want to remember and feel the things you want to put away. The part of you that is lost and alone and discouraged and disappointed or desperate, this is your night. This is your night. And if you're not feeling any of those things tonight, I'm glad to hear it. But you know, the fact is, we're all headed into a storm, or we're in a storm, or we're just coming out of the storm. And we need the one who calms the storm. There's the part of you that felt like you never belonged, that other side of the wall part of you that sometimes comes to surface in the holidays or for someone you know. This is your night. This is your night. It is our longing, our deep longing for life and love for ourselves, for others, and for the world that brings spiritual abundance, that brings grace, that brings love, that brings all the things we talk about this night. We must step out into the darkness to see the light. You have to step out into the darkness to see the light. I like camping. I don't get to do it very much because I don't get weekends. But I love camping. Any campers out there? Anybody camp? Okay. Any tent campers? Maybe not anymore, but you used to be a tent camper. So, your day is over. You've put the campfire out. You've taken your lantern into your tent. You've peeled off your day clothes, you've put on your long underwear and your nice cozy sweatshirt, and you've put your socks over the top of the lantern so your feet will be warm. Free hint for you who still camp. Warm your socks over the lantern. And just when you're going to unzip and crawl into your sleeping bag, you think, I forgot to go to the bathroom. So you know what I'm talking about, right? Some of y'all know exactly what I'm talking about. Those of you who aren't campers, you still know what I'm talking about. You don't have to have done it to be able to imagine it. And there you are, ready for bed, thinking, oh my Lord, I have to go to the bathroom. Now, guys, this is not a big deal for you, right? For us, slightly bigger deal. Now I have to put my coat on. I have to put my nice warm feet into my cold shoes and go back out and toddle my way over to the bathroom, take care of business, and then the most magical thing happens. The most magical thing happens. As I wander back to my campsite, in the surrounding dark, maybe just a little bit of a flashlight to make sure I don't trip and fall down, then I come around the corner in the dark, and there is my tent, glowing like a domed lantern with a welcoming light. Few things are as inviting as the warm glow of a tent when you stand out in the dark. But you have to go out in the dark to see where the light is coming from. This is what happens when God pitches tent with us. We can all be like lost children who need to find our way to the bathroom, and we need some kind of glowing clue about how to find the light again. Jesus wasn't kidding, though, when he said, I will be with you always. There will always be a glowing light for you to spot, because he has indeed pitched tent among us, and we who have walked in darkness have seen a great, warm, welcoming light. And because we have seen the light, we light the light. Because we've seen the light, we light the light. We light the light for ourselves. We light the light for people we're missing tonight. We light the light for people who are struggling. We light the light for people who can't get to sleep tonight because they're so excited about tomorrow. And we light the light for the people whose names and faces we don't know. People who are in deep despairing darkness, or just coming back in the camp darkness. That tonight is the night. This is our night. That all will be welcomed into the loving embrace of the light. May the light shine in your tent tonight. I'll keep the light on for you.